Hello, welcome to Growing in Uncertainty. My name is Tess Miller, and through my seminar and coaching business, Wings Unfolded, I like to help people work through any of the stuck parts of their lives. And one of the biggest reasons I like to do this is because I feel like I have been stuck many times in my life. And at first, the process of being stuck was definitely one that I resisted and had a hard time being in. But as I got used to it, I realized that there were a lot of wonderful and beautiful things that I could learn about myself in the process of getting unstuck. So it's all the stuff that I've learned along the way that I'm sharing with you on these videos. My intention is to help you work through any of the stuck parts of your life. So thank you so much for watching this whenever and wherever you are. So when I was 14, my dad would take me rock climbing at the local ledges where I live. And these weren't very tall ledges. They were maybe, I don't know, I'm a bad judge of height, but maybe 30 to 50 feet high. And a lot of people from around the state would come to these ledges to practice their climbing. If they were getting ready to climb actual mountains, they'd bring their ropes and all their gear and their friends, and they would practice climbing with each other and practice, spotting, holding the ropes for each other. And so my dad was into rock climbing at the time and invited me along on a few occasions. So I had an opportunity to do some rock climbing myself. And what I remember about that was standing at the bottom of the ledges, looking up. I could see, clear pathways up to the top of the ledge, and it seemed pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But whenever I would get strapped in and put on the rope and I would start to climb, all of a sudden it would feel way different. I would find a foothold and a handhold and be stable for a little while, but then the next step I would take, all of a sudden it wouldn't feel as stable, and I might feel like I was going to fall, or I might not be able to see the next foot or handhold I needed to take. Sometimes my dad's friends, my dad too, would point out, oh, up there above your right shoulder, grab onto that part that sticks out there. And sometimes I'd be able to find it, and sometimes I wouldn't. And sometimes my muscles would start to shake as I was trying to hold on. But getting through that process was very definitely a process of trust in the people that were helping me, trust in my body that it would be able to do what I asked it to do. And, sometimes trusting that, they say that your mind will often give up before your body does. So sometimes I'd really have to do a lot of mental techniques to get myself to override the thoughts that I was telling myself about getting up this ledge. And once I got to the top, it was pretty amazing, that feeling of reaching the top after all of the obstacles that I faced along the way. And this came up for me recently, this experience of climbing ledges and climbing mountains, as I was working with a group of music graduate students recently. I did a group coaching experience with some graduate students who are working on starting their own music careers right now. And we kept using the metaphor of climbing a mountain. And the mountain, we realized, isn't necessarily something that's outside of us. The mountain is something that's inside of us that we have to climb up, cross over, maybe move through, maybe move out of the way. But that mountain is definitely there for us to face whenever there's a goal that we're trying to reach or something that we're trying to go for in our lives. And, you know, sometimes some of these students that were in the group coaching experience had already started to climb their mountains. So they had some experiences of their own when they would face an obstacle and have to work through that obstacle or find a solution on how to get around the obstacle. Sometimes the obstacle was just, you know, the thoughts and feelings they had about maybe a letdown or a setback in going for their career goals. So, you know, climbing this mountain is something that we can get stuck in along the way if we're not mindful about how we're showing up, what tools we have to use to get over the mountain, and, you know, what we need to do to work with ourselves in order to keep going. So, you know, embarking on any life project or goal can feel like standing at the bottom of the mountain. You know, you can look up and see where you might want to go. You can see the path that you want to take. But what you can't really see yet are all the obstacles and the setbacks. You know they're there, especially if you've tried climbing mountains before. But it's hard to gauge how high that mountain really is and how long it's going to take. It's not like anyone can say, oh, in, you know, 3 months' time, you'll have it all figured out. You'll get over that mountain. It's not like that at all. For some people, you might see them climbing the proverbial mountain of, you know, going for their career, and you might see them fall. You might see them have lots of setbacks. You might see them give up, and that can be disconcerting too. Does that mean I'm going to have the same experience climbing my mountain? What if I want to give up? What if I fall? So, you know, you can also, though, anticipate how good it's going to feel to get over that mountain or through the mountain to the other side. That's oftentimes what keeps us going on our mountain. So, what is on the other side of your mountain? So, you know, in terms of my group coaching experience for the group of students I was working with, they were really looking to land that full-time job or nail an audition or find stability and peace in a freelance career that doesn't necessarily inherently have stability and peace. Each person in the group knew exactly what they wanted to feel on the other side of the mountain, but they didn't necessarily know how to get across or up that mountain. So, you know, interestingly, one thing they were all aware of was the fact that the mountain was something that they created themselves. You know, we build our own mountains, and we make them as high and as craggy and difficult to get up as we do, you know, as we feel like we need to at the time, or as we can. So what's in the mountain, or what is this mountain made of? My mountains that I create for myself usually consist of my thoughts and my feelings that I have to face in the process of going for what I want. It's often an accumulation of experiences that I've had along the way that inform me about how I might need to proceed, or what could happen, what obstacles I could face. Our mountain is also what we think of ourselves, what we think we're capable of, what we think we're worthy of. And sometimes it includes how we compare ourselves to other people. That's oftentimes a really tricky one to get over when we're constantly comparing ourselves to the progress that other people are making. We can get stuck in that process. So, you know, it's also all the things that we say we need to get over. Oh, I just need to get over that, and then I'll have what I want. Or I need to just get through that, and then I'll be on to what I want. But it's not just a matter of getting over it, right? Like there's a process of facing the different aspects of our own internal mountains that we all have to go through. So early in my group coaching participants' careers, they had all taken stabs at their mountain a little bit, some more than others, just depending on where they were. And, they've had falls, and they've seen other people around them not make it up their mountains or give up or have major setbacks. But the thing to remember is that every person's mountain is different. Your mountain isn't going to look the same as anybody else's. It's not going to feel the same as anybody else's. So this is where it's really important to take stock of the inner tools that you have or that you could develop in order to make it up your mountain a little bit more simply, not necessarily easily. So what are the tools that we can use to get up this proverbial mountain? Some people might say that it's all about grit and determination and having a well-developed character. And those are all really amazing tools to have. Those are really great. But the tools that I have found myself falling back on even more so are a little bit more specific than that. So I'm going to offer up 5 tools or attributes, if you want to think of them that way, that I recommend having with you as you face any mountain in your life. So the first one is self-awareness. Self-awareness is an absolute must before you embark on any journey. If you don't know who you are, what you need on your journey, you really won't get anywhere. It's even important to know how you handle obstacles, knowing what can come up for you under a typical, situation where you are faced with an obstacle that can really help you along the way. So you can look for the signs of, oh, yeah, this is how I normally react when I have a setback. I got it. So, climbing the mountain, remember, is about scaling your own inner heights. And when you know what that is, it's a lot easier to know what you're dealing with. As you know, I wrote a book recently called The Book of Stuck. Stop holding yourself back and start moving forward. It's on Amazon. Writing this book is the most recent mountain I have climbed and gotten over and through. And it wasn't the first time I've climbed this mountain. I've written a book before for my dissertation as a music student. I wrote a book, and so I was sort of aware of the process of writing a book. But this was the first time I have written a book without any ropes or without any guidance. And what I mean by that is that the first time I wrote a book, I had a lot of teachers. I had a lot of friends who had been through the process, so I could talk to them about it. I had a lot of guidance along the way in writing that first book. So I knew that having that experience, it was going to be really important for me to focus on the self-awareness that I needed to get through. And what I was aware of in myself was that I needed to resolve the setting of some ground rules for myself. One of the rules I needed to set for myself was that knowing that I can get distracted pretty easily, I would need to be really committed to the topic that I chose. The topic would have to interest me for a long time because, I wasn't going to sit down and write this book in 2 weeks. I know people say you can do that, but for me, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to enjoy the process of this book. More on that later. So yeah, I not only did I want to be interested in the topic, but I also knew that I wanted to be as authentic as possible, which meant sharing stories from my life and being comfortable along that way of sharing. I wanted my writing to flow so that I wasn't constantly fighting upstream against myself. The other thing that I knew that I was going to need to set rules about for myself was that I needed to let go of perfection. Perfection is something that I think is hardwired into musicians. We're constantly taught to perfect our phrasing and our intonation and certainly notes and rhythms and things like that. But sometimes I can see how perfection can get in the way of actually getting things done. So I knew that was something that I was going to have to resolve within myself as well. My mantra during the process of writing the book was, done is better than good. And fortunately, technology has made it so that if there's anything I ever want to change in my book, I can do that very easily because it is self-published and I have the control over that. So that really helped me along the way as well. So I knew that I needed to set those rules for myself because I have the self-awareness that I can get stuck very easily under certain conditions. So I made it so that those conditions were going to be more apt to keep me going. So the second skill or tool or attribute that you're going to want to have when you're facing your own life mountain is patience. I know patience is not always people's favorite virtue, but it is a really good one to have. It's important to remember that when you're embarking on a process in your life, a goal, a dream that you're trying to manifest for yourself, that if you rush it, then you might not get there. You might actually cause yourself to have more setbacks, or maybe like in the case of a mountain, you might have an injury or you might fall. It's going to take you as long as it's going to take to reach your destination. Some people, if you're into the compare game, some people might take less time than you. Some people might take longer. Maybe the weather was different for them. Maybe they had different tools. Maybe they were further along than you to begin with. Who knows what it is? But the point is, your mountain is perfect for you. It's the mountain that you need to cross in order to get to your destination. The destination oftentimes is more about the process of getting there, right? So if you try to rush through that, you might miss some of the beautiful lessons that you're meant to learn in the process of climbing your own mountain. So in the case of my book, I had the idea for my book a year before I started actually seriously writing it. And then after that, it took me a full year to write it. If I'd been in a hurry, though, looking back on that process, it would be a completely different book. It would have, very different exercises in it. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't have the depth that I see that my book has now, had I rushed through it and written it before I actually, started writing it. What happened for me was the pandemic hit just at the point where I was really getting serious about writing it. The pandemic gave me a whole new layer to bring into my book. The book isn't about the pandemic, but it gave me perspectives that I wouldn't have had I not, taken the time and waited until it felt right for me to start writing the book. So not rushing through that process allowed a lot of my thoughts to not just be thoughts. They really pressurized and became diamonds, or at least that's how I like to think of them. So allow yourself the time and space that you need to climb your mountain, and let it be an unfolding process. If you do, I think you're going to be much happier with the result. The third tool or attribute that you're going to want is out-of-the-box thinking. If we're boxed into just one way of reaching a destination in our lives, we might miss really important opportunities that might come up along the way. There isn't one way to get to any destination. I think when you talk to people in your lives, it's kind of fun to see, hey, how did you end up becoming a postal worker? How did you end up becoming a teacher? How did you end up becoming an engineer? And what's interesting is that anybody's path is so, so different. Even if you compare two engineers, one to the next, they're going to have very different stories about their process of how they got there. Or even two musicians, definitely. There is no one way to get to where you want to go. And no way is better than any other. It's easy to forget that, though, when you run into someone and they tell you about their process of getting the dream career they always wanted. You can think, oh, that's what I should be doing, or oh, I should have done that. But that's not necessarily true. It was true for that person, but it might not be true for you. And it's important to remember that obstacles are inevitable when you climb any mountain in your life. And finding the solutions around those obstacles require creativity. If we're locked into one way of looking at finding a solution, we could miss really important discoveries about ourselves and the process that we're working through. We might get blocked off for good if it has to be a certain way. If it has to be a certain way and it doesn't happen that way, you're going to want to give up. I would. So, I've been part of a lot of different projects in my career where I might be working with other people, and one or two people have very clear expectations about how we need to do things and the path that we need to take to move forward. And what inevitably happens is we get stuck because the project doesn't follow that path. And if it doesn't follow that path, it gets stuck. And then it's done. It's over. We don't work on it anymore. And it's always really tragic when that happens. And I think, gosh, there could have been other solutions for this, but it seemed like we were headed down a pretty, locked in path. So if you can't get out of your box, your way of viewing things or thinking about things, you probably won't reach the other side of the mountain. So when I was writing my book, there was an exercise that I really, really wanted to use, but it was an exercise that was introduced in my coach training program. And because my coach training program has some specific rules about, the intellectual property and how you can use it beyond the training program, I wasn't going to be able to use it in my book. So I was bummed for a little while, but then I realized I was going to have to put on my creativity cap and figure something else out. And in the end, I was actually a lot happier with what I came up with compared with what the exercise was originally going to be. So had I been really stuck in only one way of doing things, I would have missed out on coming up with my own exercise, of experiencing my own creativity and creating something that was even better. So, it's flexibility in your thought process is a must when you're working on your mountain. The fourth tool or attribute that I recommend that you have is to focus on the process rather than the end result. You got to enjoy the scenery along the way, right? Like that's part of climbing a mountain, is noticing how the air changes, noticing the flowers that might come up and that you might not see at the foot of the mountain, but that you see in the middle of the mountain, noticing the wildlife, noticing how the sky changes. And as they say, the journey, any journey, is the destination in life. The journey is what shapes us. It's what makes us into the people that we're meant to become. And becoming who we are is really the ultimate goal of life, right? So if you're focused only on the end result, whatever that end result is, getting a job, having the perfect relationship, having your life look a very specific way, you might miss all of the beautiful things along the way that help you become you. So I loved the process of writing my book. I really did. I never pushed myself beyond what I knew I could handle or could do at any given time, but I did push myself. I pushed myself just enough. I would definitely celebrate the small wins along the way, because if I didn't, it would be kind of a dull process, right? So when you're climbing your mountain, you've got to take time to look back at how far you've come and celebrate that. And I tried to make the process of writing my book as fun as possible. When the process feels really good to us, it's inevitable that the end result is going to be pretty fantastic too. Whereas if the process doesn't feel good or it doesn't feel right somehow, I can guarantee that the end result is not going to make up for the journey. So really enjoying that process is definitely a tool that you're going to want to cultivate when you're looking at any mountain in your life. And the final tool that you're going to want to have when you're facing an internal mountain is self-compassion. Having compassion for yourself through the process of climbing your mountains will give you the strength that you need to keep going. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to have people get in the way. You're going to have things turn out not the way that you wanted or expected. You're going to feel like you made mistakes. You lost your footing. You fell down. But the worst thing you could do for yourself is get mad at yourself or get down on yourself or point the blame at yourself. If you can have self-compassion, that's when you bolster yourself for any of those setbacks or the obstacles that you face on your journey. Compassion is a gift that you give to yourself because you know better than anyone else what your mountain consists of. You know better than anyone else the thoughts and feelings that are going to come up for you on your journey and how high it is and what it's going to take to get over that mountain. There were definitely times in the process of writing my book when I felt like what I was writing was pure garbage. Certainly the thoughts and feelings that came up for me about that were pretty mean. They were pretty heavy and made me want to give up. But instead of giving into those thoughts and feelings, I had compassion for the person who was thinking them. There was a reason those thoughts and feelings were coming up. They didn't have anything to do with the book, but they did have a lot to do with past experiences and a sense of wanting to protect myself from getting hurt. So having compassion for that part of myself that was doing that allowed me to let go of those thoughts and feelings a lot faster so that I could get back on the path of writing my book and not get too distracted or not get too lost or stuck. So self-compassion helped me know that it was time to take a break or to forgive myself when the path wasn't easy or clear at times. So if you want to know more about self-compassion and how to create that in your life, I did a video a while back called Cultivating Self-Compassion, so you can check that out. So those are my 5 tools for climbing any mountain in your life: self-awareness, patience, out-of-the-box thinking, having a process mindset, and self-compassion. So as you might know, my focus word for this year is freedom. And once we can surrender to the process of climbing our internal mountains to reach any goals that we have, we're going to feel a lot more free to face the next mountain, because inevitably there's going to be another mountain to climb. So whatever mountains you might be facing right now in your life, I hope this message resonates and helps you. Thank you so much for joining me whenever and wherever you're joining me. I'm always so grateful for your presence and to hear your feedback. Please like or share these videos with anyone in your life that you think might benefit from what I have to say. And if you want to be included in my upcoming virtual and in-person book launches, be sure to sign up to receive emails from me or go to my website and fill out the form to subscribe to those emails. You can stay tuned to any of my updates on Facebook or LinkedIn under my business name, Wings Unfolded, or you can find me by name, Tess Miller, on Instagram and on YouTube. So if there's something that you want help with, a mountain that you want help facing, feel free to send me a private message. I'd love to connect with you, have a conversation with you. And remember that it's okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Have a fantastic week.